In this video, we're going to look at how we can actually ingest data using the Sitecore batch APIs. This is much more useful and much more realistic in terms of getting data about the employee from an HR system, for instance, where you can run a batch API to load that data about your employees. This can be on a nightly build or a nightly run, scheduled nightly run, and this can be done using Azure functions or other methodologies to schedule it. And we're going to see how we actually add that data within Sitecore CDP. So let's get started. The first thing you need to do is identify the Sitecore CDP guest data model for batch API. So what we want here is, if we scroll down, if we go to the documentation side, Sitecore CDP batch APIs, and then the guest data model for batch, we'll see here at the very bottom, there is the ref, or there is a sample JSON example for it. You'll see it has a ref, and this is a GeoID to identify the record that's being imported. It's not your guest, it's not anything related to your guest itself, it's related to the actual batch request that's going to be sent. Then we have the schema, the mode, which is upsert, and the value is where all your guest information or your customer information is in. So you'll see here we have the customer, first seen, last seen, if we have any subscriptions, if we have any identifiers and extensions. Of course, in our scenario, our identifier is email, so we don't need to do that. We'll just add email, and we don't need subscriptions, but we will add our extension for our job type as we've done in the previous example. So for us to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go here and just show my created item. So you'll see here I have a JSON here that has a ref, a schema, and a value, and it has guest type, first seen, last seen, first name, last name, email, and the extensions, which has the job title. This is one I've already inserted previously, but I'm going to copy it and create a new one. So I'm gonna just create a new request here. So the first thing I need to do is create a GeoID. So I'm just gonna create a new GeoID here, copy it, and add it in place of this ref. The second thing I'm gonna do is make sure I update this content to be my actual users or my new users. So I'm gonna use Bob J, and his name is Bob, and his last name is J, and then the job title is software engineer. Okay. Once I'm happy with the content, of course, this content would be actually read from our HR system and added. So one thing we need to do is flatten that content. So we need it to be one line, because what happens is, or the way this works is that each line in our file constitutes one record. So it's one JSON for each. So I have here my flattened Adele. I'll do a new one here for Bob, just below it. And then I'll just change this GeoID, because as we said, this is for the batch and this batch has already run. So I have two new records. You'll see that each line is its own JSON. However, the actual file itself is not JSON. Each one of these lines is a JSON object on its own. The next thing we need to do is zip that, and we need to gzip it. So again, I'm just going to explore this and open it in File Explorer, and I'll delete my previous gzip and use a new one, or compress this one. I just use 7-zip and add to archive, and I want it as a gzip. Once I'm happy with my gzip here, I've created my gzip file. I need to start actually creating my requests. So the first thing we need to do is a pre-signed request. What the pre-signed request does is it actually creates a location, and this location is the AWS location where the file is going to be uploaded to for the queue to actually batch it and start working on it. So again, what we need here is another GeoID in place of this, because this is for that batch. So I'm just going to generate a new GeoID and put it here, and then I'll just send it. What this will do is it will create a new location here, as you can see. Of course, what I've actually done here is I've set the upload URL and batch ref variables directly from the output from here. But just to show that in action, I'll go to the upload file. From here, what we need to do is a few things. Upload URL, that's the URL that we currently have here. So I can just edit that variable and put it as my new URL, and you'll see that it has already been updated. The second thing I need to do is pass in a few items, and there is something I did actually forget to do in this request, so we're gonna need to redo it again. We need to update the checksum and size of that file. So I need to go back here, and the size is 385 bytes. So I need to change that size here to 385, and then I need to change that checksum. So I use a handy tool that is for getting a checksum for a file. I'll upload my file here, and I'll get that checksum from here, copy it, and update this checksum here. And since it's a new request, I need to have a new GID for it. So I just sent a new GID. And again, I'll just copy this href. And that's the upload URL that we're going to be sending to. And you can see it from here. The second thing we need to do is actually get that content MD5, which is just a base 64 for our checksum. So again, I'll take our checksum from here and go to a hex to base 64, add it, and convert it to a base 64, copy it, and paste it in place of this one. And now I have my content MD5, and I have my my upload URL, which actually came from my variable. The next thing I need to do is actually upload my new file. So I'll remove this, and from the body, I choose that it's binary, and then select the file that I need to upload from here. So let's recap on what we've done so far. So the first thing we did was we created our pre-signed request. We got the URL from that pre-signed request. And of course, within the body of that pre-signed request, we added the checksum and size. And then we used that same URL that came from here and added it as our URL for upload. We uploaded our Gzip file as a binary, and we updated the header to have the checksum as base 64 string. And now that we have our URL, our checksum here, or our base 64 checksum here, and our body has the Gzip, we're gonna actually send it. And we should get a status of 200, which is okay, which means that our request has been submitted. The next thing we can do is check the status. Remember, we said that this runs through a queue, so each batch ref will give us an update. It should say processing as soon as it starts uploading, and then success once it's complete, as we can see here. Once it's complete, what we need to do is go back to Sitecore, and we can go to our guests, and this is where we can search for our guests and see them. So I have Adele V. So you'll see that our Adele V customer is here, and we'll see that if I go to the debug and go to data extensions, we should be able to see that job title manager, which was our first record from our record list here. So you'll see job title manager, and we also want to validate that the second one has been upserted, which was Bob, I don't remember his name now, but it's Bob J. So we can search for Bob J as well to validate that he has in fact been added here. So we should see Bob J. It might be that it's still running. We'll see we have a lot of customers here. So once that Bob J is added, we should be able to see him here as well. And I do realize that I didn't actually update my batch ref here, so it might be why it's showing success even though it's actually showing the previous URL. So what I need to do is go back to my batch reference, which is this one, or I can just copy it from here. Might be easier to copy from here and just run it in my check status just to validate, and it is successful. So I should be able to see Bob J as well from here. Of course, I can check status of Bob J if it does fail, but I'm pretty sure Bob is going to be here. There's a lot of Bobs. Anyway, so I'm not sure why it's not showing here, but you get the idea of how we were able to upload a batch. Thanks for watching. For the next video, we're going to talk a bit more about personalization, as well as how we can start using these customers to personalize and create our segments as well.